Hey, Slater Crusaders, welcome back. The question now that Roe v. Wade overturned, what's next? Now that it is left to the states, what are the states going to do? Well, the left is fear-mongering, of course, and they have to bring everything back to race. Here's a former state rep on CNN scaring everyone about what's next.
Because what else is not in the Constitution? You talk about a right to privacy. Marriage is not in the Constitution. Homosexuality is not in the Constitution. Consensual sex is not in the Constitution. And so what we do know is that this court will take the next step. Anybody who says they won't is just not paying attention. This court is coming after same-sex marriage. This court is coming after Loving. This court is coming after Brown v. Board.
Loving, by the way, is interracial marriage. So I think the fear-mongering is that there's like a movement in red states to ban interracial marriage that's going to work its way up to the courts. How absurd. Will Chamberlain is here. He's at the Article 3 Project, also at the Internet Accountability Project. Will, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Good to be with you.
Good to talk to you. What is next? Let's talk about these fear-mongerings, that this court is going to overturn all the things he just listed. Is that true?
No, I mean, that's not going to happen for a number of reasons. First, as a doctrinal matter, none of those decisions about interracial marriage are based on the right to privacy that was discovered in Roe. They're based on the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which guarantees everybody in America the equal protection of the laws. And, the court has done a pretty good job expounding that to say it's not equal protection if you prohibit marriages, people from choosing who they want to marry. For just as one obvious example, or any of the other kind of like obvious governmental civil rights cases. I mean, that line of authority has nothing to do with Roe. It's just a completely different question. And secondly, I don't think there's any reason that, these states, it's just based on this like bigoted presumption among elite liberals that people from conservative states are racist. And so assume that they are still angered or angered at all by interracial marriage. It's just not the case. So that's not coming at all. What will come, obviously, are various state laws that restrict abortion to varying degrees. And that's, because that's really what this is going to be limited to. It's going to be limited to abortion.
And Alito's even like explicitly clear. Like the sentence is something like, to be clear, this only has to do with abortion and nothing else. Like it's that emphatic.
Right.
Okay, well, let's talk about these states. So let's do the red states first. So let's say you got like Oklahoma, Louisiana, Texas, like the reddest of the red states when it comes to this issue. How far do you think they're going to go to ban abortion? How far can they legally go now that quote unquote Roe v. Wade is overturned?
It's unclear, right? Like that'll have to be settled because, for 50 years now, it's been, the big law has been your states are simply not allowed to restrict abortion in the first trimester and only can impose limited restrictions in the second trimester. Now, obviously that's completely different. So I suspect that in some of the reddest red states, you're going to see flat out bans on abortion. And even I was hearing rumblings that in Louisiana, they were going to try and criminalize both not only the doctors, but the women who get them. I think that would obviously be a very, very significant overstep. I think that would, I'm reminded of, I think it was Luttwak who talked about, going beyond your culminating point of victory. I think starting to try and put women in jail would be going beyond that and lead to a backlash that ultimately leads us to lose seats. But that said, I think you're going to see some flat out abortion bans in certain states. And then in other states that are a little bit more moderate, you'll get something more akin to what Europe has, which is something like a restriction where it's, abortion only in the first trimester, after that prohibited.
Yeah, and there was an article, New York Times quoted some French politician who said overturning Roe would be a disaster to women in America. Meanwhile, in France, you can't get an abortion past 14 weeks, which if they were a state would make them the most restrictive state in the entire country, even more so than Mississippi, which was the state in question. Right. Alas. What about the blue states? I live in California. So there's this talk of spending taxpayer money to fly women in from these red states to get an abortion in California. And I'm sure that would happen in Chicago, et cetera. Is that legal?
Sure, I don't see why not. Just off the top of my head, if the people of California and their representatives see it in their wisdom to spend tons of their money to transport women from other states for the purposes of getting an abortion, that would be legal in their states, right? There's no federal ban, so I don't see why other states would have any say about that. I think that's up to them if that's how they want to spend their money. I think that'll just lead to the further exodus of people from blue states, right? We'll have more of even more sorting than we've already had, where people, conservatives in California will want to move, and liberals who are particularly obsessive about the right to abortion will move to blue states where it's legal.
Hey, Slater Crusaders, thanks for watching that full clip. This is the most important moral issue of our era of our life. This is it. Please have a conviction. I mean, you clearly do. You watch that whole clip. There's many more on the First TV app.